Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the TOS podcast. We have a preview of the US Open by our very own Matt Haynes, our expert tennis trader, who will take you through the draw and some of the best bets and picks for the tournament, as well as a few of the discussion points. There's been a few interesting developments in the run-up to the tournament. Unfortunately, due to technical reasons, we did try this morning to have a one-to-one conversation and have that for the podcast, but that didn't quite work. So Matt has very kindly been able to record his thoughts. So what I'm going to do is share that file with you, have a few kind of headlines for that, and a recap of the best bets at the very end. I think you'll still find it's a brilliant insight into Matt's trading mind and how he sees the tournament. If you're interested in the tennis service, which is a part of TradeonSports, a big part of TradeonSports, where Matt produces ratings for tournaments, not just the Grand Slams, but across the year, trading notes, and is also on hand in our Telegram rooms to promote a trade or two when he sees a good opportunity. It's definitely well worth a look. I've learned a lot from his process as well. So links for those, links for TradeonSports will be in the background. And again, another thanks to BetDex, who are very kindly sponsoring this podcast for us. BetDex, which is an innovative, leading crypto-based exchange, and for tennis in particular, you will see a lot of competitive pricing on the individual matches if you compare them with the other bookmakers and exchanges that are around. So again, if you're in a territory that BetDex uses, well worth looking into as well. So I hope you enjoy the podcast, and we'll see you for the next one.
Hello, Neil. Happy to be here. Very much looking forward to the last Grand Slam of the season, the US Open. Let's get straight down into it then, really. There's been a lot of talk about the court speed. Ex-players have been saying, potentially it could play as fast as Cincinnati. But after watching all the qualifying, having a look at the service holds, that looks like nonsense. If we add my ratio onto the service holds from 107 qualifying matches, I'm getting an 81% service hold, which is just slightly above the tour mean of 80.4. So by no means they're fast courts like Cincinnati. Yes, earlier in the day when the weather is warm, they will play a little quicker, and at night they will slow down. But to say they're as fast as Cincinnati, which aids players with massive serves, Shelton, Hurkacz, Sabalenka, etc., that's nonsense. They look to be playing about average, maybe slightly quicker in the day. Okay, so if we look at the men's side of the draw, quarter one is headlined by Sinner. Now, the Italian's been embroiled in some controversy with regards to doping and being allowed to play, not banned after failed tests. Personally, it doesn't matter to me whether he was doping or not. Yes, my opinion of him has dropped a little, but I don't think it will affect him at all within this tournament. I mean, to make it to number one in the world, you have to be mentally strong. And I can't see Sinner suddenly breaking down and mentally worrying about, oh my gosh, what's everybody saying about me? I've been doping or I haven't been doping. It's just irrelevant to me, really. What's more of a concern for Yannick is his hip. He seemed to be clutching it a lot in Cincinnati at the end of longer rallies and whatnot. Will his body stand up to the rigours of a slam? 2 weeks of highly competitive action? That remains to be seen. His quarter, it looks straightforward, really, up to when he meets Tommy Paul in round 4. But Paul, he looked like he was carrying an ankle injury when we last saw him. And you have to ask the questions, are the Olympics taking their toll on players? It was an extra effort they've had to throw in the middle of the season. It means a lot to a lot of people representing their countries, So maybe they've left, the later part of their season on court in Paris in July. We'll have to wait and see. But as far as Sinner goes, I really do expect him to make the quarterfinals, where he's slated to play Medvedev. And Medvedev really knows what to do now with regards to beating Sinner. He just have to wear him down. I mean, that's why Medvedev's in the top five. He wears players out. He will make them run and run and run until they can't feel their legs. And hardcore is his game. And personally, I would take him over Sinner in the quarterfinals. We have Tsitsipas in this side of the draw as well, but against the very best, his weak backhand, it hinders him. His forehand's immense, yes, world class, but his backhand, all you got to do is keep hitting it to his backhand, and eventually he will break down. Then we got a couple of younger players. We got Mickelson. He's made the final in Winston-Salem, so he's had a long week this week before a slam. I mean, he could take Sinner to 4 sets in round 2. And then we have Jarry. He's floating around here, but is he carrying an injury? As usual, he'll be very hard to break, but, will he break down if he has to play a couple of 5-setters? Because big servers, over the best of 5, a big server has to get everything right. He has to hit his spots constantly with his serve, and he has to play the big points well, because a lot of big servers, they're not great returners. And to win a slam, you need to be able to serve and return. It just takes too much out of these big servers to play at that level for an extended period of time and win all of the big points. That's a big ask for any big server. So in quarter 1, I'll fully expect a Sinner Medvedev quarter-final where as long as Med hasn't been dragged into too many unnecessary long battles in the previous 4 rounds, I think he might take the Italian out. Looking further down the quarter, I mentioned Tsitsipas earlier. He's slated to play Felix in round 3. Now, Felix has improved immensely. And it's quite possible that he could go well here. It's quite possible that he could knock out the Greek in round 3. And set up a clash with Medvedev in round 4, where I think the Russian will come through, because my point about big servers stands, and that applies to Felix, really. I mean, all in all, quarter 1, Medvedev versus Sinner, quarter final. I think you can pencil that in. Medvedev's around 17-1 on the outright. I think that's worth a few quid, all things considered, with Sinner's potential hip issues. Moving over to quarter 2, which is headlined by Carlitos. He's got it pretty tough, to be honest. A potential second round match against Shapovalov, and now the Canadian, he could turn it on and he could push Alcaraz to 5 sets, or he could turn into an oversized child and sulk and get done in 3. 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. It's a crying waste of talent. His mental game is non-existent, really, and you need that at the top level. I'd have Alcaraz winning that match, but he doesn't really want to be pushed to 5 if Chapo decides he wants to play. Then Alcaraz, if he gets through that, he's due to play Draper. Now Draper's immensely talented, but he's made of glass. He has improved his physicality in recent times, and again he could push Alcaraz. I mean, by the time we get to round 4, Alcaraz could have potentially played he could have played 11 sets, 12 sets. That's not ideal. You have to ask as well, where is Carlos's head at? He's quoted as saying after Cincinnati that he needed a few days where he didn't think about tennis, and then proceeded to go on court, lose his head, smash his racket, and lose to the old man Monfils. So really, you've got to ask: has the Olympics taken their toll in the French Open? You know, personally, I think he's vulnerable. I think Korda should make round 4. If he doesn't, he should sack his coaching team and have a crack at Alcaraz, where he's got a good chance of winning. And then in the bottom half of this section, we got Hurkacz, who's propping it up. Well, he's injured. He's come back way too soon from his knee injury at Wimbledon. And I think the Australian de Minaur, he's immense value for the quarter winner. He's got a clear path to round 4. He should take care of a potentially injured Hurkacz and set up a match against either Alcaraz or Korda. Now, if we look at the quarter prices in this quarter 2, let me just have a look. Pull this up. Quarter 2. Obviously, Carlitos, heavy favourite. But you're talking of prices of 12 and 13 about de Minaur and Korda. And I think a split stake on those two to win quarter 2 wouldn't go amiss. Because even if Carlos does make it to the quarter final, you're going to be having a 12-1 ticket and a 13-1 ticket about one of those gentlemen actually beating the Spaniard. And that's immense value to me. Quarter 2 looks a pretty decent bet. Okay, so de Minaur and Korda, split your stakes at odds of around 12 and 13-1. Moving on to quarter 3, we have that headlined by Ruud. And if we look at his draw, he's got a typical Ruud draw where you won't really notice him and he'll just pop up in the semi-finals. He's made the final of this event before. Clay's his surface, really, but I wouldn't discount him, but I wouldn't bet on him either. Bookending his section of the draw is Fritz. Now, I would like Fritz here, but he's got a round 2 against Berrettini, and personally, that could go either way. I'm not going to back Fritz on the basis of that one match against Berrettini. I mean, either or man could come through that and set up a 4th round against Ruud. Moving down to the bottom half of the draw, it's headlined by Rune. Now, Rune has the potential to go well. You know, he raises his game, he plays up to his opposition, so he raises his game against the better players, and he plays to the level of bad players, and that's why he's got some horrific losses on his record. But if he can get his forehand pop in, his drop shots go in, and he serves decently, he's going to be hard to beat. And if we look at his price for the quarter, it's 9.5. That's not got quite enough juice in it for me, because at the bottom of this section is Zverev. Now, he's finally blossomed into the player he always threatened he was going to be years and years ago. The German has got what it takes to win the big matches. His odds for the quarter, they don't interest me at all, just over even money. But if we look at the outright, we can back him at 9. Add to that the Medvedev back at 17, and we've got some nice prices about some very decent players. You know, Zverev Rune quarter final will be an epic match, I think. Let me just look at the quarter again to win the quarter. 9.5 Rune. I mean, personally, I'd have Zverev beating Rune, 4 times out of 5, 8 times out of 10. I don't think that price is worth enough. But that's the quarter final I expect to see in this section. Like I said, Berrettini could go well. Fritz could go well, but they're going to beat each other up in round 2. Ruud has got the potential to sneak all the way through to the semi-final. Buster has got a very, very good record at the US Open, but he retired last night with some sort of stomach problem in the semi-final of Winston-Salem, so he can be overlooked. We've got Jerry Shang, he's another big hitter. Should like the courts, but over the best of five. I think he's got potential physical issues. All in all, quarter three, I can see ending up with either Rune or Zverev against Fritz or Ruud or Berrettini. There's too many imponderables in this section, so I think we'll leave this one alone. Bet wise, just take a little pop at Zverev to win the entire thing. Moving on to quarter four, this is where we find Djokovic. Now, he reportedly had to end his training session yesterday, Friday, due to some discomfort. And there are reports coming out. Let me just click on the report. There are reports coming out that he is suffering from some kind of injury, but the exact cause is unknown. So he's keeping his cards close to his chest. Now, Djokovic has done this before. He's played rope-a-dope. I think he does it to relieve some of the pressure on him. Whether he's injured or not, nobody knows but him and his closest allies. So we're going to have to take it that Djokovic is fit and he's going to be through to the quarterfinals at the very least, because he has got a pretty peach of a draw. Really, there isn't anyone in there that could really threaten him. He could get a couple of workouts from people like Popperin, TFO, but I don't think either of them have got the game to beat him, really. Shelton heads the bottom half of the draw. Now, he's a big serve bot, and like I've said, it takes a lot of things to go right for a big server on the men's side to actually go far in slams. So we can overlook Shelton. The top half of the draw, we have Dimitrov. Now, he's a perpetual flake. He retired at Wimbledon with an abductor injury, and he hasn't looked really in the best of form since, so we can overlook him. And at the very top of this section, we have Rublev. Now, he's interesting because he looks to be finding his game once more after a prolonged slump after he defaulted in a final. I think his head went pop and he didn't play very well for months, but he does the basics very, very well. I do like Rublev as a player, and he has a nice draw really through to the quarterfinals. There's not a lot of people there to really take him on. Fokina, but he's too mercurial. Maybe Lecter, but he's coming back from injuries. Like I said, don't fancy Dimitrov. He's looked well out of sorts. So I think we could pencil in Rublev for a quarterfinal spot against the man Djokovic. And I'd take Djokovic to win that match every time unless he is carrying some sort of injury. So all in all, in the men's section, I'm going to take a couple of bets in the second quarter. Diminor and Korda. Split stake on both of them to win their respective quarter, 12 and 13. And I'm going to take an outright on Medvedev at 17 and Zverev at 9. And that wraps up my men's preview. We're going to move on to the women in a moment. I'm just going to get a drink. Okay, moving over to the WTA side, and this is where we got a chance of finding a big prize finalist, a big prize winner. It's a lot more open than the men's usually is, where one of the top men usually do the business. That's the best of five format, really, where the cream rises to the top. So the previous thoughts about big servers don't really hold sway in the women's side, as they're only playing 3 sets, so it's just a normal match for them. And like I said, there's the potential for some upsets because we've seen Raducanu win, we've seen Andreescu win, we've seen Osaka beat Serena in the final, which was a shock. Pennetta, she beat Vinci in the final. I think Vinci downed Serena in the semi-final that year. I've never seen 80,000 people go so quiet, to be honest with you. So anyway, let's have a look at the quarters. So headlining quarter one, we have Swiatek. She's won this before, 2022. But she's quoted as saying that her expectations this year are a little lower because it has been a very intense season with the Olympics. And she's also quoted as saying that things have not been easy for her after the Olympics. And she wouldn't say she's focused or relaxed because it's impossible to be relaxed while she's in New York. It's too noisy for her. She's a quiet, homey girl, it seems. Maybe this is a bit of gamesmanship and she's trying to open up a pressure valve to release some of the pressure on her. You know, you can never discount the pole, but I don't like the noises that she's making pre-tournament, really. In her section of the draw, she's got Andreeva, the wonder kid, who could very well go deep, but is very inexperienced at this level. We got Collins. It's her last season. This is her last ever slam. It's her home slam. You know, I'd have said she would have been a potentially good bet if she'd have landed in another side of the draw. She could push Iga, but I think Iga would ultimately beat her. And as well, on her return at Monterey last week, she looked very rusty. And she lost her cool. She did suffer heat stroke at the Olympics. And like I said, she didn't play till last week, where she looked a bit off. I mean, she could pull it all together, make a fourth round against Pegula, and that will be a great match. Like I've just mentioned, we have Pegula in this. She's in really good form. She's probably one of the form players coming into this tournament, but she normally struggles to get past the quarters in slams. I think it might be a bit of a mental block. And like I said, the round 4, potentially against Collins or even Schneider. Schneider's been in fantastic form as well this year. Will be a very tough match for Jess. We've also got Bolter in this section, but she's looked very erratic lately, and it seems her service deserted her, so she needs to put it all together quickly. And then we've got Emma Raducanu, who's a former winner. I mean, she'll fight like an alley cat, but her body's made of glass. And whether she can stand up to a couple of 3-setters, couple of hard matches, I mean, she's got nowhere near the draw she had when she won this. It absolutely opened up for her. It was an amazing run, to be fair, but she didn't really beat anyone. But that's not her fault. All she could do was beat the players that were in front of her. She's got a tougher draw here, and I can't fancy Raducanu at all. I don't think there's a lot in this quarter 4 for us. I mean, the potential round 4, Swiatek and Andreeva, Collins or Schneider against Pegula, they're proper popcorn matches. But all the girls, you know, they might beat each other up by the time they get to face a Rybakina or an Osaka or a Mukova in the semi-finals. So we can move on to quarter 2, headlined by Rybakina. Now, she did look rusty in her last match, which she lost, but it was her first since Wimbledon. But if she's injury-free, she is fresh, and she should go well. If we look at her price, she's 10s for the tournament. And for her quarter, she's the favourite. I wouldn't be interested in backing her at that price. There's too many dangerous floaters in this quarter. We've got Wozniacki, who's getting on a bit now. She likes this tournament. She's done well at this tournament before. She can definitely be competitive, but I think age is catching up with her, and her forehand now looks a little wonky when she's put under pressure. Pav absolutely dealt with her in her last match. Then we have Mukova. Now, she's immensely talented. Made the semi-finals here last year, but she played her last match with tape on her shoulder. Again, she's another one who's perpetually injured. And in her last match, with her shoulder taped up, she only landed 49% of her first serve. If her body stands up, I expect her to go well, but she's got it pretty tough. If you have a look at who she's slated to play, she opens up against volley nets, who she should beat, but then it'll be Ostapenko or Osaka. Now, personally, I think Osaka will come through that. She's quoted in July as saying, this is Naomi, right now my goal is to focus on the US Open and the Asian swing. These are the goals I've set myself as of now, and I'm very excited about them. I think she's worth a bet, to be honest, to win the quarter at 7.5. We have Paolini, who I think is injured. She's the other seed at the bottom. She went to the Wimbledon final. She went to the French Open final. Olympic doubles final with Irani. I think she's about running on empty. And she might be starting to feel her body. We have Putin Siva in this. Now, she'll scrap like the proverbial alley cat as well, but she's beginning to look a little fatigued after a long season. And then we have Noskova, who made the final in Monterrey yesterday, and a deep run before a slam is not ideal. Kalinskaya's in this section as well, but she's very erratic player. And I watched a match against Badosa, the last match she played, and in set 2 she was just refusing to chase balls down. Now, that to me suggests she's feeling something. She's carrying an injury, so she can be discounted as well. All in all, quarter 2, I think Rybakina's got to breeze through to the quarters, really, where she could face any one of 4 players: Osaka, Mokova, Andreescu, or Putin Siva. I mean, Andreescu, she's a previous winner here. She likes these courts. The last time I seen her, she was hobbling about, but she does that in matches. Very much like an Andy Murray, she'll hobble around as if she's injured, then suddenly start jumping around like Master Yoda in a lightsaber fight. It's quite a sight to behold, really. You couldn't discount Bianca, but I don't know whether her body's up to the task. She's 19 to win the quarter. I think I prefer the talk coming out of Osaka myself, saying this is what she's aiming for. She mentioned that a few months ago. She's twice a winner of this tournament. I mean, she basically ended Serena's career here. And I think that's what caused a lot of mental turmoil for her, because the crowd were booing her. She was a little girl, really, ending her hero's career. And Serena behaved disgustingly at the end of that match. I don't know if you can find it anywhere on the internet, but it was disgusting. I really did feel sorry for Osaka. But anyway, if her words are true, and this is her goal for the season, 7.5 to 1, about a quarter winner, where she'll face Rybakina in the quarter final. She won't be 7.5 to 1 in that match. It'll probably be 3s or something. I think Osaka's a good bet to win quarter 2. Moving on to quarter 3, where we have Krejcikova at the top. She can beat anybody on any court on any given day. Wimbledon winner, former French Open winner. Her US Open record's not the best, 8-8. And also, she's withdrawn from her last 2 tournaments with a thigh problem she got at the Olympics. You know, how fit is she? Is she another casualty of the Olympics? That's something that we've got to ask ourselves. I'd say the hardest task she'll have in her section of the draw will be against Badosa, who's been in outstanding form on the hard courts in the last few weeks. But can we trust her body to stand up to a slam, considering her chronic back problems? I expect her to go well. She should make round 3, where she sets up a meeting with Craig. And then the winner of that in round 4 could meet up with Sakari. Now, she was playing well, and then she started to withdraw from a few tournaments with what she described as a shoulder injury. 18th of August, she started training again. So she's had a week or so off. I'm not sure how bad her shoulder injury was. She's got a 17-9 record at the US Open, and she could very well sneak into the 4th round here and set up a tie with either Craig or Badosa. Too many imponderables there for me, really, so I'm going to leave that top half alone. In the bottom half of this section, it's headlined by Navarro, and it's bookended by Goff. Now, Goff is vulnerable in my opinion. She's overrated. She had a dream draw last year to win this, even with her wonky forehand, but she's played a lot of tennis this year. I think she pushed herself too far at the Olympics, hasn't really been in any sort of form afterwards, and I think she's very vulnerable. And this is the section to attack on the women's side. I'm going to go with Navarro because even though she lost in the semi-final last night in Monterrey to Noskova, she did look like she was going through the motions after losing the opening set, and she did look like she had bigger fish to fry on her mind. She's a New York girl. She'll be playing in front of a home crowd. I mean, there's not a lot here standing in her way, really, of a 4th round. Blinkova, Bogdanov Rus, Harriet Dart. You know, it's just the quality isn't there to push her. And I believe she's got a massive chance of beating Goff and making the quarterfinal. If we look at her price, 7.5 to win the quarter. I think I'll be taking some of that. Moving on to quarter 4. Right at the very top, we see Zheng Qinwen, Olympic gold medal winner. She's been in decent form on the dirt. Hasn't looked so good after the Olympics. And she's up against Anisimova, who looked fantastic in Montreal, Toronto, where they played the women's in Canada, losing the final to Pegula. Now, I believe that Anisimova is the value in the top half of this bottom corner, and I think she will set up a round 4 match. A quarter-final match with Sabalenka. If we look at the other players in this draw, we have Keys. You know, you'd think she'd be dangerous. 32-14 record, the US Open, but she popped a hamstring in the Wimbledon semis. And then I think she came back too soon because she had to retire last match again after aggravating the same hamstring. How fit is she? And you know, it's not. You don't really want to be backing a player who's potentially injured here. And there isn't a lot else in this bottom half. Sabalenka's fell on her feet, really. You know, to get to round 4, she's got to beat Hon, Bronzetti or Sun, Alexandrova, Tomova, Linette or Jovic. No, I can't see any of those standing in Sabalenka's way. I think she's primed to make an absolutely massive run here. I'd back Anisimova 12s to win the quarter, because you're going to get 12-1 about a match against Sabalenka, where she's going to be potentially 3.5 at the very most. And if we look at the outrights, Sabalenka's the favourite. I'm not too keen on backing favourites. You could probably get more than that price if you roll her up in every match, in all 6 matches going forward. I think the outstanding bet there in quarter 4 is Anisimova. Let's just have a look. Yeah, 12 to 1. I'm more than happy to take that price. The other players we got in this section, the only person I could see is Mertens, really, but she's just a flat track bully, as we say in England. She'll beat the player she's supposed to beat, and then she'll lose to the better players. So all in all, I think the bets on the women's side are going to be Rybakina outright at 10s, Osaka to win quarter 2 at 7.5, and Anisimova to win quarter 4 at 12s. Thanks for listening, guys.